This is a modern midrash. It's my interpretation and retelling of this week's Parshat Vayetze, and I hope you will join me and Jacob on this journey. At first, leaving was freedom. Release from the rivalry with Esav, release from the judgment of Isaac, release from the smothering embrace of Rebekah. At last, he could say goodbye to all that. Elation surged through Jacob's body as he ran through fields and over hills, feeling light. He laughed out loud, remembering that morning, how he was blessed as the oldest son instead of Esav. His father had fallen easily for his ruse, how powerless Esav had been to change the outcome, how he'd cried like a child. Now Jacob was blessed. He would always be the better brother. The sun was setting rapidly as Jacob reached the threshold of the forest. The trees rose tall above his head. His heart pounded with exhaustion and fluttered with fear. He knew he should stop there. The red and dying sunlight barely penetrated the canopy, and the forest was dark. But the trees opened their arms and invited him in. Jacob dove into the woods. Darkness closed around him. He felt suddenly aware that he was alone, with nothing but a few provisions. He had no weapon to fend off wild beasts, nothing to protect him from thieves hiding in the trees. And who would know if he was hurt? His mother was not expecting him to return. His father barely ever saw him, really. And his brother wanted him dead. Who would care now if he was injured or if he died? Loneliness swallowed Jacob. He had always been a confident youth, surrounded by women who told him he was clever and handsome. Now he was without family or friends, an orphan. What did it matter if he was clever? What did it matter if he was blessed? Jacob shivered and pushed the thought away. He cut through underbrush and ducked past branches until he could barely see anything at all. He tripped over a root and banged his lip, tasted blood. He stood up in total blackness. For a moment, he thought he had disappeared, except that he could still hear the leaves crunch under his foot when he took a step. Jacob kept his hands in front of him, feeling his way through the forest. The trees grew farther and farther apart until Jacob reached a clearing covered in stones. The clearing was filled with a soft light from a sliver of moon. Jacob arranged the largest stones around him for protection, then found one smooth stone on which to lay his head. Above him, the stars shone and the moon smiled. He wished they felt closer, that he didn't feel so small. He traced the shapes that the stars made with his finger, like he used to do with his mother when he was a child. Suddenly, he realized he might never see his mother again. His heart filled with grief and self-pity. Would he be alone forever? He brushed away tears, but waves of sorrow and fear crashed over him, and he lay there until he dipped into sleep. Sometimes we cannot access our feelings until we slow down and stay still. Alone and separated from our usual distractions, we can feel what we could not sense while we were busy, while our feet were moving and our minds were planning. Sometimes we can summon the courage to be with our feelings, to pay attention to them, and listen to what they are telling us. Other times, it's easier just to go to sleep. Jacob dreamt of a ladder. It stretched from the earth to the stars. He couldn't see the top. When he approached the ladder, it gently repelled him. He stepped back and bumped into angels standing beside him. They looked like people, but they glowed. They smiled at him the way the moon had, sad and sweet with tired eyes. "Where did you come from?" Jacob asked. "We have always been with you," one said. Jacob tried to think of a reply, but the angels began to climb up the ladder. He watched them climb and disappear until the last one mounted the ladder and placed a hand on his shoulder. He felt great warmth at her touch. "Wait!" Jacob cried out, but it was too late. They didn't turn around. They just disappeared up the ladder. "There were angels with me? Why couldn't I see them? And why are they leaving?" Jacob tried to climb after them, but again the ladder repelled him and he fell to the ground. "Come back," he shouted, but he knew it was no use. Then he saw angels descending the ladder. These were different ones. They wore fresh robes and had hopeful eyes. "My angels," Jacob thought. He was not alone. When they arrived on the ground, he reached out to embrace them, but they remained at a distance. Suddenly, the clearing filled with a bright light. It shone from every tree and stone and star, every branch and leaf and spot of moss, from the earth below and the sky above, even from Jacob himself. Jacob could hardly tell where he began and where everything else ended. A voice spoke. It vibrated in Jacob's chest and shook the leaves. The voice told Jacob it was the God of Abraham and of Isaac. Jacob swelled with pride. God had chosen him as their successor. The voice promised that the land upon which Jacob lay would belong to him and his descendants. Jacob felt himself expand. He grew until he contained all of the clearing, until he contained all of the forest, all of the lands from the mountains to the desert, from the hills to the sea. He marveled at his enormous body. How grand he felt. Time began to move before Jacob. He was born, clutching his brother's heel. He sat in his mother's tent while Esau shot an arrow outside. He stirred a pot of red lentils and gave a bowl to Esau when he returned from a hunt, tired. He put goat's hair on his arms, from smooth to rough. The image made him shiver. Then Jacob saw himself as an older man, surrounded by wives and children and many sheep. He wore elegant robes, but had dark circles under his eyes and a sad expression. Then he was on his deathbed, surrounded by people, even an Egyptian prince. And then once more, he was alone. Jacob felt himself shrink and descend towards the clearing. The light returned and the light receded and the darkness returned. Jacob fell through the sky and the voice said, "Remember, I am with you." Jacob fell past mountain peaks and treetops, and the voice said, "I will protect you wherever you go." Jacob landed on the earth, black darkness closing around him, and the voice said, "I will never leave you." Existence is great loneliness. We are singular beings, finite and small and bounded by bodies. Yet in certain moments, we can feel those boundaries melt. We can sense that we are connected, that we are not alone. Love can do this. Faith can do this. Mystery can do this. To feel this connection is to be fully awake. Jacob awoke in the clearing. The darkness was total. He could see no moon or stars. He began to shiver. It had all been so beautiful. Now it was gone. He had been accompanied by angels, had contained multitudes, had been with God. Now he was alone again, and it was darker than ever. He wished for his mother, his father, even his brother, the warmth of their shared tent. But he had stolen from his brother, had deceived his father, had abandoned his mother. Remorse settled in the pit of his stomach. He had wanted to dominate his family since birth, and now he had. But he hadn't realized it would be so lonely and cold out in front. Jacob began to cry. He allowed hot tears to come, and he truly wept, shaking and sobbing, his breath shallow. He longed to return home. He felt as though he were falling lower and lower, the darkness engulfing him. Then suddenly, something caught him, a presence, an angel. One held his body and another his head, and they placed him gently on the earth. An angel wiped his eyes, and another put an arm on his shoulder. Jacob smiled. He could see the angels now. Rays of light appeared. The angels faded. Jacob sat up, looked around, and said, Achen, yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh, v'anochi lo yadati. God was in this place, and I did not know it. Jacob lifted the stones that protected him in the night and arranged them into a pillar, placing his headstone on top. He took oil from his provisions and anointed the pillar, marking the place. He must return here someday. He wanted to dream again. Perhaps he should stay here another night. Perhaps he should return every year. The daylight grew brighter, and Jacob could see that his clearing was on the top of a hill. The land stretched out before him, from the mountains to the desert, from the hills to the sea. Jacob felt the old tingle of ambition. He wanted this land, his land, as it had been promised. He wanted the future that he had glimpsed, the women and the children and the sheep. He wanted all that the world had to offer him. He must go out and get it. Jacob began to run. For a moment, we can feel it. For a moment, we are open. We are connected. We are all-knowing. And then it passes. We move forward. We move backward. We forget. Life continues, and we return to the person we have always been. After all, she is right there, waiting for us. Yet we are changed, if almost imperceptibly. And every once in a while singing a song, retelling a story, interpreting a dream, or just taking a breath, we can glimpse that truth, apply that wisdom, feel that connection, appreciate that blessing. Most of the time, God is there and we do not know it. But every once in a while, we do. Kadish Darabanan. Yikadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach Yiruteh, be'amlich malchuteh, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם עולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. על ישראל ועל רבנן ועל תלמידיהן ועל כל תלמידיהן ועל כל מן דעסקין באורייתא די ואתרא הדין ודי בכל אתר ואתר יהי להון ולכון שלמה רבה חינה וחיסתא ורחמין וחיים אריכין ומזונה רוויחה ופורקנה מן קדם אבוהון דבישמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא ברחמיו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.